Okay, so good morning. Today's daf is daf Yud in Menachot. And we are at the bottom of Tet Amud Bet. Let me share my screen and we will get started. So, yesterday, well, let me back up and say the Mishnah on Daf Vav Amud Aleph noted that if a Kohen does Kamitza, and God willing, I think tomorrow we'll see sort of how one does Kamitza, but it's basically taking a palmful of flour and you do it with your left hand instead of the right hand, the mincha is invalid. And we ended the day yesterday by noting that Rabbi Zera offered an explanation, offered a source for this. And he specifically learns it from the fact that when it comes to the procedure for putting oil on a healed mitzorah, the Torah specifically references the palm of the left hand 4 times. And together, these 4 references teach that when the Torah otherwise references a palm or a hand without mentioning a side, it means the right palm. So that is going to be true for Kamitza. And so specifically, the 4 is as follows. We need the 4 to teach us the following. First one comes to tell us, the first time it says the left hand, it's to tell us specifically that when it comes to the oil for the mitzorah, you need the oil gets put in the left palm. The second time is to tell us is going to be, well, if we only had 2 times, we might have thought that that would be the rule for every palm usage, meaning that if you have 2 times, maybe you learn from the fact that you say left hand twice to say every time we need a palm, we're going to use the left palm. Then the third time is to tell us not that way, and specifically to limit it. And the fourth time is to tell us that no, in fact, not only is that limit apply specifically here, but it applies throughout the Torah. So those were the 4 references, and that was Rabbi Zera's explanation for how we know that you need to do kamitza with the right hand. We are going to see over the course of today 2 more explanations or 2 more bases for saying that you need to use the right hand. In the end, we will note that there are really that everybody agrees that there are, or well, not necessarily everybody, but that there are 2 main explanations, meaning that either this first explanation or the second explanation will apply, and the third explanation will apply. And we have these multiple applications because of the multiple steps that are involved in the mincha offering. And so it's to tell us specifically that you need to use the right hand with respect to each of those separate steps. So let's take a look. Let's dive in. And again, now we're going to have, before we get to the second explanation, Rabbi Yirmiyah is going to ask some questions to Rabbi Zera, that basically Rabbi Zera has said that the multiple references to left teach us something significant. So now Rabbi Yirmiyah says, okay, you're telling me that every time in this story of the Mitzorah, that every time it references, and it's important to note that the Mitzorah is discussed twice, almost in identical words, because first it talks about a Mitzorah who is wealthy, and then it talks about a Mitzorah who is poor. And so you have 2, when it comes to the word left, you have 2 references in connection with the wealthy, 2 references in connection with the poor. That gets you to 4. But so now Rabbi Yirmiyah wonders, hey, what about other words or other sentences or other phraseology that is repeated? What do you do about that? So Amrle Rabbi Yirmiyah Lu Rabbi Zera. Again, we're now end of the second to last line on Tet Amud Bet. So Rabbi Yirmiyah asks, Al boen yado yamanit, al boen raglo yaminit, ksiv lamali. Why do we specifically need to reference that it's going to be on the thumb and the big toe of the right hand and right foot? Because after all, we would know this from the fact that that the Torah tells us that you need to put the oil on the same location where you put the blood from the asham. And so the blood from the asham goes on these places. Same thing with the oil. So we know that already. Why does it specifically need to tell us this precise location? So as we turn to Yud Amud Aleph, skipping the parenthetical, Chad lahachshir tzadin, v'chad lipsol tzidei tzadin. One is to tell you that if you have your hand, again, the top of your hand is the back of your hand, and the bottom of your hand is the palm of your hand. If you have and it's going on the right thumb. So if you have your hand and you put it on the nail side of the thumb, that's the correct side. That's the top of your hand, of your thumb. But if you put it on the side, is that good or is not good? So the side of your thumb, if we say, is going to be good. That's why it specifically says a second time, meaning we don't need to be told any of this about being put on the thumb of the right hand and big toe of the right foot. But the fact that it tells us this sentence once with respect to the wealthy mitzorah and once with respect to the poor mitzorah, there, and by the way, there is no average mitzorah. There's just can you afford it or can you not? But in any event, the point is that you have the first repetition is to tell us that the sides of the thumb are okay, but the front of the thumb is not okay. That's the side of the side is essentially the opposite side. As Rashi tells us, third line down on Yud Amud Aleph, v'chad al bohen bein diyad bein deregel, whether it's your hand, the big finger of your hand or your foot. Lifsol, it's to tell you that it's going to be to invalidate tzidei tzdadim, the sides of the sides. Basara tachton, namely the fleshy part underneath, not the side with the nail. Shekineged a kaf, which is opposite, meaning if you grab it together, it will connect to the palm. Da al amrinan velo tachas, because if you hold your hands like this, so the al is on the nail side and the tachat is on the palm side. And similarly with respect to your foot, it's even more obvious, right? Nobody has their foot, thank God, or hopefully most people don't have their foot in a way where the fleshy side of your toes are up, rather the nail side is up. And so as a result, the on is the nail side and the under is the fleshy side. So that is the answer to question number one. Question number two, al dam ha'asham, al mekom dam ha'asham. When it comes to the wealthy mitzorah, it says that you put it on the blood of the asham, and and when it comes to the poorer mitzorah, it says that you put it on the place of the blood of the asham. So lomai asu, that's also a repetition that was not necessary. Meaning, once you can either tell me it's on the blood or on the place of the blood, or you can tell me it's on the thumb, and the right hand and on the big toe of the right foot, because both of them are telling us the same thing. So why this repetition? So hani tzrichi. Actually, we need both of them. So because ikas of Rachmana al dam ha'asham, if it had just told us to put it on the blood of the asham, hava mina in niskaneach lo. I would have thought that if the blood is still there, then great, then you can put the oil on. But if the blood got wiped off, you would need to do the blood again or something, or that you wouldn't be able, it would be not kosher and you'd have to start all over again. So kasav rachmana al makom. That's why the Torah also says that it's got to be on the place, because it means that the place that the blood was, even if the blood isn't there. Because of Rachmana al makom, and if the Torah had just told us that it needed to be on the place, I might have thought that you have to get rid of it. After all, if it's still there, maybe it's some kind of separation between the oil and the thumb or big toe, and so as a result, maybe that would not be okay. So kamash malan al dam hasham, and so that's why it also tells us that it can be on the blood of the asham to tell us that it's okay if the blood is still there. So as a result, we've got those two different approaches. So we've now finished with Reb Zera, and now we have Rava, who's going to give us a different way to learn that Kamitza must be done on the right hand. Rather than saying that it's the reference to left four times, he's going to give us a different explanation. Amar Rava Ma'achar Diksiv Al Dam Ha'asham Al Mekom Dam Ha'asham. Once we have those two verses, Uksiva Yimani Padam, and it says the right hand with respect to the blood. Abon Yado Yamanit, Abon Raglo Yamanit, Diksivi Bishemin Dimitzora Asher Va'ani Lamali. Why do I need to tell us about the place of the big toe and the thumb on the right hand when it comes to the oil, when we already know that it needs to be placed on the same spot that you do the blood, and we know that the blood needs to be on the right hand thumb and the right foot toe, big toe. So how come we have that repetition? So I don't think that's all necessary. So Ella Amarava Yad Yad Lekamitza. Really, what we have is the following. We have the word hand with respect to the Mitzorah, and we have the word hand with respect to Kamitza. As Rashi tells us, it's not literally hand in connection with the Kamitza, but let's take a look. It's Rashi. It's 1, 2, 3 down from the top of the narrow lines in Rashi. It's about 20 lines down. Yad Yad Lekamitza. Ksiv b'mitzorah ashir. When it comes to the wealthy mitzorah, it says Yado hayemanit. Delo itzrich. And we didn't need to tell us that because we already know that it's got to be on the right hand because after all, it needs to be on the same place where the blood was. V'ksiv b'kamitza yad. And when it says, with respect to taking the handful of flour, it uses the word hand because it says via malay kapo. You have to fill your palm. So obviously kapo is not the word yad, but it's referring to the hand. And so as a result, we're going to even allow a gzera shava. As we've seen, we can do a gzera shava between uvaha kohen and Vishava Kohen, when a Kohen returns and a Kohen comes back, and a Kohen comes. So the point is that if it's the same concept, and indeed that also is with respect to a Mitzorah, where the Kohen is coming to the Mitzorah's house. So Ma Yad Mitzorah Yimanit after Kamitza Yimanit. So just as the hand needs to be the right hand with respect to the Mitzorah, it needs to be the right palm with respect to the kamitza. And so as a result, in the end, we have a gzera shava, not the repetition of left, left 4 different times. And not so that's with respect to the hand. And you know what? Regel, lechalitza. Back into the Gemara. So back into the Gemara. Again, we're now 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 lines down, or 12 and 13 lines down where it says regel, lichalitza. So that 12 or 13 lines down in the Gemara. And it says that the point is that we also similarly will have a gzera shava between regel with respect to the Mitzorah having the oil put on the right big toe of the foot, and when it comes to the regel of engaging in the process of chalitza, and which foot do you take the shoe off of? You take the shoe off the right foot. And finally, ozen l'ritzia. And you know what you do with respect to the right ear? I'll tell you what. You say that just as the oil gets put on the right ear, so too when it comes to an Eved Ivri who wants to stay with his master, and the Torah tells us that we bore a hole in his ear, we put his hole in the right hand. So that's what Rava says. Rava has 3 different gzera shavas, and that's the basis for how we know you use the right hand, and that if you use the left hand, it's prohibited. So Rava, now you've explained a different source, but smalit lamai asa. what did you use? What are you going to use the four references to left in order to teach us? As Rashi puts it, one, two, three, from the bottom of the narrow lines of Rashi, it's 15 lines up. Smalit matlam lamai asa. The asher lo itzrich, because we don't need to reference it with respect to the wealthy. So lamai asa, why are you coming to teach us it? Bishlema kama Legufe, well, the first time it would be fine because it tells us Smalit below Yamanit. It tells us the left and not the right. Elatinyana lamai. But why does it repeat it? Remember, both with respect to the wealthy and with respect to the poor, it repeats the word left four times, twice in each. So why do you need it the second time with respect to the wealthy? So Amar Rav Shisha, Breder of Idi, Lifsel Yamin de Kohen b'mitzora. It's coming to tell us that if you a Kohen does does it with his right hand, it's telling us that it's not kosher. Shalo Tomar, because we want to make sure you don't say Uma b'makom shalo nisrabsa small nisrabsa yamin, in a place where we don't include the left, meaning the left is prohibited. We say that the right is not only permitted, but it's required. Small, maybe we would make a kal v'chomer that if in a place where the left hand is prohibited, we're going to say that you have to use the right hand. So then maybe we would say that where if the left hand is permitted, you can also use your right hand. So the point is I might have thought to say that. And so the point is to prevent us from saying that, we're going to repeat the word left twice to tell us that it's actually required to use the left palm. So ve'idach smalis lamai asa. What about the two more times that it says left with respect to the poorer mitzora? You know what? You don't need to learn anything from that because we have a brisa taught in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael. Kol parasha shenemra v'nishnit. Anytime the Torah tells us something and then repeats it, lo nishnit ela b'shvil davar shenischadish bo. It's only coming to tell us something new with respect to it. And here, what is it coming new to tell us? Rashi tells us shenischadish bo, top of the widest lines in Rashi, near the end of the line. Uparshas ani nischadish carbon olav yored. What is unique about the ani is that we have this the smaller the variable offerings that are associated with it, and so that's what it's coming to tell us in that context. And so as a result, although it does repeat the word left two more times, because what the Torah is doing is just coming to teach us the variable offering, those repetitions don't need to teach us anything, and we don't have to learn anything from it. It's not considered as if they are extra. Okay, so as a result, we now have two derivations, two approaches, either the four mentions of left according to Rabbi Zera or the Gzera Shava of hand according to Rava, and we have two explanations for why you use the right hand to do a kamitza. So now we're going to have a third approach, and we're going to then say, hey, and again, the first two approaches are alternatives. Either you say four lefts or you say Gzera Shava, but you wouldn't use them both. So Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yishimon ben Lakish, Kol Makom Shenemra Etzba Ukuhuna Einu Ela Yamin. You know what? I don't need either the Gzera Shava or the references to left. I can tell you, how do I know that we need to use the right hand in order to do kamitza? Because anytime where it says the word finger and it references Kohen, it only refers to the right hand. Now, we will get to, so our initial thought is, Kasalka Daidach, Etzba Uchahuna Bihina. Our initial thought was, what was being said in the name of Reish Lakish is that you need to have both a reference to Etzba and a reference to Kahuna. When it comes to the taking the blood of a chada's offering, it says that this is in Perek Dalid, Pasuk Kavhei, and Pasuk Lamed Dalid, that the Kohen needs to take the blood with his finger in order to apply the chatas blood on the horns of the altar, on the elevated pieces of the four corners of the altar. So v'gamar mitzora, and we learn this from the situation of mitzora, because diksiv v'tavala kohen es etzba'o hayimanit. Right there, we have both a reference to finger and to kohen, and we know it means the right. So that's the source, and so we're going to apply the same principle to the chatas offering, that you need to use your right finger in order to apply the blood to the mizbeach. And therefore, hare kamitza. Now we can say, with respect to kamitza, delo ksiva ba'ela kahuna. It doesn't mention anything about finger. It only tells us about the priest, about the kohen. Utanan. But 1 second. Kamatz bismol pasol. We have our Mishnah, which specifically tells us that if you do kamitza with your left hand, it's not valid. So Amar Rava, no, we're misunderstanding what Reish Lakish is saying. Oh etzba, oh kahuna. We have two separate things that could trigger the meaning that we need to use the right. If we're told that it needs to be a kohen, needs to be his right side. If we're told it needs to be a finger, it needs to be the right side. So Amar le Abaye, Harei holachas evarim lakevesh. Well, 1 second. What about when you bring the limbs to the ramp of the altar? Diksiv behu kahuna. There it says in the Torah the word kohen. Diksiv v'hikriv hakohen es hakol hamizbecha. And so that is a pasuk. Vayikra Perek Aleph Pasuk Yud Gimel, right? It says V'hikriv hakarayim v'yirchatz b'mayim v'hikriv hakohen es hakol v'hiktir hamizbecha olahu ishe reach nikoach laHashem. So just skipping the word v'hiktir, but and so Amar Mar zo halachas of evarim lakevesh. This is referring to bringing the limbs to the ramp. Utnan, and we have a Mishnah. This is a Mishnah in Tamid, Daf Lamed Aleph Amabet, where it says, Haregel shel yamin bismol, that you hold the right leg in the left hand. Ubeit ora lachutz, and you have the hide facing outside. So as a result, it's clear in this Mishnah that he's holding it with his left hand, not his right hand. And we said the word Kohen in connection with it. So how can you, Rava, say that Reish Lakish really means either finger or Kohen is enough to mean the right side, when we have this case where it doesn't? No, ki amrinan o etzba o kahuna b'davar hama'akiv kapara. No, when we say that you have to use the right, when it says either finger or Kohen, it's talking about something that is necessary, that is not only required, but is essential. If you don't do it, it undermines your atonement. For example, sprinkling of a mitzorah. But when it comes to something that's not essential, like bringing the limbs to the altar, because if you don't burn anything on the altar, the korban is still a valid korban. So then it's okay to use the left. So 1 second though, v'harei kabbalah. What about receiving the blood? Davar hama'akiv kaparahu. That's something that is essential. Uksiv ba'kahuna, and it says a kohen with respect to it. Diksiv v'hikriv b'nei Aaron ha'kohanim es adam. Zo kabbalas adam. When it says that the Aaron's sons the Kohanim would bring the blood, even though that is also teaching us about the bringing of the blood from wherever the animal was slaughtered and the blood was received to the altar, it's also telling us about the initial receiving of the blood. Utnan, kibel bismol pasol. So Rabbi Shimon machshir, it says that if you receive it in the left hand, it's invalid. But Rabbi Shimon says that it's kosher. So we have a question on Rabbi Shimon because according to Reish Lakish, given the fact that the Torah says that references the term Kohen in connection with bringing the blood, it should be required to receive the blood with your right hand. And yet, unlike the Tanakama, Rabbi Shimon disagrees. So the Gemara responds back, Rabbi Shimon Kamra, you're asking me about Rabbi Shimon? Rabbi Shimon Tartibai. Rabbi Shimon says that you need to have both. Although Reish Lakish says that either finger or kahuna is going to be sufficient to mean that you need to use the right. So when it comes to Rabbi Shimon, he says that you need to say both in order to mean the right. Only by Rabbi Shimon Tarti. One second though, you're telling me that Rabbi Shimon really means that you need to have both? One second, is that really true? V'hatanya, we have the following brisa. Rabbi Shimon Omer Kol nek makom shenemra yad ena el yamin. Any place where it says the hand, it means the right hand. Etzba enu el yamin. And when it says the right finger, it means the right finger. So that shows that you can have just etzba without kohen and just yad without kohen, and it still means right. So what are you telling me that he needs to have both Kohen and Yad? It's clear from this brisa that Yad and Etzba are sufficient on their own. So Etzba lo by Kahuna, Kahuna by Etzba. No. You're absolutely right. He does in fact say that when you refer to a finger, or for that matter to a hand, it means the right hand. But when he uses the word Kahuna, there you also need the word etzba or yad in order for us to have the right hand application. Well, one second, if that's true, that if you have etzba or yad alone, it means right. But if you have kohen without etzba or yad, it doesn't. But if you have kohen with etzba or yad, it does. Ela kohen lamali. But then you have to tell me, why does it need the word kohen at all? From a practicality perspective, there's no difference between kohen with the word yad or yad slash etzba with the word kohen and yad slash etzba without the word kohen. So why do I need the word kohen in that instance? So bikuhuno. That's what it's telling us, is that it's telling us that he needs to be in his, if it does say the word kohen, it means that he needs to be in his kohen status. And what does that mean? Last Rashi on Daf Yud, Amud Aleph, bikuhuno, the big day kahuna. It means that he's got to be wearing his priestly garments. And so that's what it means. And so now that we have that explanation, so again, we're back to where everything makes sense. You can, according to the Tanakama, as explained by Reish Lakish, either Kohen or Yad mean right, whereas Rabbi Shimon says Kohen alone does not mean right. Okay, V'harei zrika delo kasav ela kahuna. But 1 second, as we turn to Yud Amabet, we have an example of something where it says the word Kohen and it doesn't mention finger or hand when it comes to the throwing of blood on the altar. This is, for example, with respect to the Ola in Perek Aleph, Pasuk Yud Aleph of Vayikra, where it says, "V'zarku b'nei Aaron haKohanim es damo al hamizbeach." It just says that they're Kohanim. It doesn't say what hand. It doesn't even reference a hand. So utnan zarak b'smol pasul, and yet we say that if you throw Kohen through the blood with his left hand, it would not be valid. V'lo palag Rabbi Shimon. And Rabbi Shimon doesn't disagree with this. Now, this is actually not a Mishnah anywhere. In fact, that's what Rashi, I think both Rashi and Tosos point this out. In fact, you can see the first words of the Tosos on the top of the daf. Tema de ein zeh bava Mishnah. B'shum makom. This is not in a Mishnah in any place. The bottom line is that you can derive it from a Mishnah, and so as a result, and Rabbi Shimon doesn't disagree in that Mishnah. So as a result, the Gemara is suggesting that that shows that Rabbi Shimon would not disagree that a right throwing the blood with the right hand is required. So Amar Abaye explains no, he doesn't agree. Palag bebraisa, you're right that he may not disagree in that Mishnah, but he does provide his position explicitly in a brisa. Tanya kibel b'smol pasol Rabbi Shimon Machsher. When it comes to receiving the blood, as we saw just a few moments ago, if you receive it in the left hand, the Tanakama says it's not valid, whereas Rabbi Shimon says it is. Zarek b'smol pasol. It continues and says if you throw it with your left hand, then it's invalid according to the Tanakama. For Rabbi Shimon Machsher, and again Rabbi Shimon would say that it is valid, and so as a result, he is consistent that when it says Kohen without Yad or Etzba, it does not necessarily mean that you have to use your right. But when it has both Kohen and Yad or Etzba, it means that you have to use your right. Ve'elahada Amar Rava. 1 second. So now, at bottom line is we have this drasha of that anytime it says Kohen or Yad, it means right, and we have the drasha of the Gzeira Shava of Rava, or for that matter, we have Rabbi Zera's lesson of small 4 times. Ve'elahada Amar Rava Yad Yad L'Kamitza Lamali. Why do I need that Gzeira Shava that Rava taught us? Mikahuna Nafka. We can learn it from Kahuna, and of course, Rava was the one who specifically said that it was O Etzba O Kahuna, that he was interpreting Reish Lakish, and so as a result, doesn't he agree with both principles? So why do I need to have both the Gzeira Shava of Yad Yad and to learn from the reference to Kahuna, meaning the right as well? So Chad Lakometz v'Chad Lakiddush Kometz. One comes to tell us that you need to use the right hand to do the kamitza. That's the taking of the fistful. And after you take that kamitza, you need to put it into a new clay shares, a sacred vessel, and that also needs to be done with the right hand. You can't move it to the left hand and then put it in. So, all right, so that is Rava. Now we go back a little bit and say, hey, what about Rabbi Shimon? The Rabbi Shimon, the low boy Kiddush Kometz. 1 second. We said that Rabbi Shimon doesn't need both of these lessons, right? Rabbi Shimon, there's a viewpoint that says that Rabbi Shimon does not require, after you do kamitza, that you put the kamitza in, that you put the kometz in a new kli sharis. So that's one question. Because if you don't need 2 drushas, one for the taking of the kometz and one for the sanctification of the kometz, why do we have 2 drushas? We have the Yad Yad Gzeira Shava, and we have the lesson of, for at least Rabbi Shimon, the combination of Kahuna and Yad. Ulamanda Amar Nami Debai Kiddush Kometz Rabbi Shimon. And even according to the one who says that Rabbi Shimon also requires sanctification of the kometz, Bismol Akshuri Makshur, he says that you can do that with your left hand. So Yad Yad de Rava Lamali. So what does that? What does the Gzeira Shava of Yad Yad do? So the kamitza gufa. If you want to say that it's for the kamitza itself, Aliba de Rabbi Shimon de Rabbi Yehuda braid de Rabbi Chia nafka. For according to Rabbi Shimon, we know that from the Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Chia. Dam Rabbi Yehuda braid de Rabbi Chia. My time of the Rabbi Shimon. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Shimon? To Amar Kra Kodesh Kodashim Hi Kachatas v'Chasham. When it comes to the mincha offering, it says in the Torah. This is a pasuk, Vayikra Parak Vav pasuk Yud. It says that it's considered holy, just like the sin offering and the asham offering. So what do we learn from that? Bala ovda biyad. If you come to do the mincha or the parts of the mincha that are done by hand, ovda biyamin kachatas, you have to do them with the right hand, just like the sin offering. Bala ovda bechli, if you come and you do them with a vessel, ovda bismol kasham, well then you can use the left hand just as you use the left hand with respect to the asham. Here it's referring to the asham of the oil, where in connection with the blood of the asham that you do for the mitzorah, you put the oil into your left hand and then use your right hand in order to put it on the right ear, right thumb, and right big toe of the mitzorah who is healed. So, so why do I have now effectively a third lesson? So lo nitzracha el kometz de minchas chote. You know why he needs an additional lesson? It's specifically in connection with the kometz for a sinner's mincha. Namely, according to Rabbi Shimon, you need to do kamitza with the right hand. And so as a result, he says, and you need two different lessons. You need the Gzereshava of Yad Yad, and you need the lesson that Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Chia, taught in connection with learning from the Chatas offering. Because Salkatay de Kamina, I might have thought that when it comes to the sinner's offering, because Hoel v'amar Rabbi Shimon shelo yehi karbano mehudar, that the whole reason that we don't include oil and levona in the sinner's offering, a mincha offering, is because we want it to be an ugly offering, a non-nice offering. Ki kamitzla nami bisvoltis kasher. I might have thought that if you use the wrong hand, well, that's making it less nice, and therefore it should still be kosher. So kamash malan, that's why we need the Gzereshava. So as a result, we need Rabbi Yehuda's teaching to teach us generally a kometz needs the right hand, and we need the Gzereshava of Yad Yad to tell us that, you know what, even when it comes to the sinners, a mincha offering, we also need to use the right hand, even though that might arguably make it look better. Okay, so one last little bit. Now we're on the bottom line of Yud Amud Bet. And so, Kamatz va'ala biyado tzor or garger melach, continuing on onto Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, oh, koret levona psul. So if you were to do a kamitza, this is language from our Mishnah on Vav Amud Aleph, that if you do kamitza, and in the kometz that you took, a pebble came into your hand, or a grain of salt, or a little bit of levona came into your hand, the whole thing is puzzle. As Rashi says, O koret levona pasul, mipnei kometz chaser. What you ended up with in your hand is not a full fistful, and so it's missing something. Kidei makom hakoret, because it's either got the particle of levona, it's got the piece of salt, it's got the pebble in it. Now ve'im tomer. Now Rashi points out, and if you ask ketzad kometz, how do you do this kamitza? As again, we're going to see that, God willing, tomorrow. V'halo levona al haminchahi diksiv, as it says in Vayikra Perek Vav Pasuk Chet, Kol halavona asher al hamincha, all of the levona which is on top of the mincha. So tshuva. So how do you do it? Meaning, if the only way to get to the mincha is through the levona, how are you going to get a mincha that doesn't include some particle of levona with it? So tshuva l'davar, the answer to the thing is kishakometz, when you do the kamitza, misalik halavona kula l'tzad echad. You remove all of the levona to one side. The kometz hasolos me'em sakli, and thereby you have now access to the middle of the vessel where the flour is, and so you go in and you've got the flour that you want for your kometz, and you won't have any levona in it. So kol hanai lamali. So now back into the Gemara at the two dots on the top line of Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. So kol hanai lamali. Why do I need to learn all of this? Again, the Mishnah is about to say, or the Mishnah was about to say that the reason is because the kometz is deficient. Well, if it's deficient because of a pebble, it's also deficient because of a grain of salt, and it's also deficient because of lavona. So why do I need to give all three of these examples? So why reference all of them? So tzricha, you need all three of them. Now, although often we say tzricha and it means that you need it in both directions, here that we mean need it only in one direction, as we are about to see. De'i tana tzror, because if we had only learned about a pebble, mishum delav ba bas hakrabahi. There is no korban where you bring a pebble onto the altar. And so as a result, it's totally not supposed to be there, and therefore maybe that's what's not going to be valid if you accidentally included it in your fistful. Aval melach. But when it comes to salt, that goes on the altar. Indeed, you're supposed to salt sacrifices before they get put on the altar. So, ematis kasher, maybe that should not make maybe the kometz that includes the salt should still be valid. So that's why we needed to teach us salt. V'itana melach, and if we learned about the salt and we didn't reference anything, and we have the pebble and then the salt, delo ikva bahadi mincha ikara. Well, that's not something that's supposed to go on the mincha from the very beginning. That gets put on the mincha at the end. And so as a result, it's not supposed to be in the container that you're taking the mincha from and that you're doing the kometz from. So maybe that's why it's not kosher. Aval lavona is supposed to be in the container, as we saw in Rashi. Kol lavona asher ala mincha. It's supposed to be in the original container with the mincha offering. So de ikva bahadi mincha ikara. That is supposed to be there from the very beginning. Ematis kasher, maybe that should be valid. So Kamash Malan teaches us that all three are prohibited. And again, if we had just learned the lavona, we would know the other two, because if the lavona is not permitted, certainly the salt and the pebble would not be permitted. But we are learning it in not only this, but this as well. And so as a result, lozu afzu. So we got that basic idea, and we can therefore by say that all three of them are in fact necessary to teach. So again, the next line of the Mishnah was about the fact that if you have a kometz that is missing something or has something extra, it's going to be invalid. So the Gemara needs to address, why did it need to mention it? After all, we already had the application of the rule. We could figure it out ourselves. But for that discussion, you'll need to stay tuned, God willing, to tomorrow's daf.
Why are they pushing the way the lavona to get to the comets? I understand you want the he wants the comets, but of
No,
the solet, but then why is the lavona there in the first place? Isn't that
because the
part of the
Torah tells us
mixture?
the Torah tells us you gotta have it there. So
So if you have to have it there, why do you have to push it away? It seems a little
because
odd.
the kometz has to be only solet, only flour, with potentially with oil, but only flour, no lavona. That's there are effectively, it's almost like there are two psukim that disagree with one another, and so how do we coincide them? On the one hand, the lavona needs to be on top. On the other hand, we have a principle that you need to take a kometz of the flour and not the lavona. So how do you do it? And so Rashi has given us the explanation. This is Rashi, although Rashi almost makes it sound like it's his idea. This is an idea that is elsewhere in the Gemara. But the bottom line is that that's how we accomplish both of these goals. That we want the lavona there, but we need to do kamitza without including any lavona. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's a xeris akasav. It's understood that that's the way the Torah is, what the Torah means.
It just seemed, but the lavona could become mixed with the what do you call it? The solid. right?
Yeah, you have to be careful. You have to just make sure that it's just on top and doesn't get mixed in together. Because if it got mixed in together and you end up with one particle of it in your solus,
It's puzzle.
it's gonna be puzzled. That's exactly right.
And the Vona is isn't that a powder?
I don't know. I don't know. I should have looked that up. I was thinking of that question as well. Like, what is the consistency of Lavona? God willing, tomorrow I will look that up and we'll be able to discuss that as well. But I did not double check sort of like what that consistency is. It's also one of the ingredients in the Ketores.
Nicotores. So isn't
So.
that's a powder that's burnt, right?
I would have thought so. I would have thought that at least it could be powderized because after all, you need to be able to mix it all together in the mixture that is the Katoris. So I'm not 100% sure, but I would think that that's exactly right. But
I
I'm
mean,
going to
I'm
do a
thinking
double
you go to
check on
the
it.
if one goes to the beach and he has I don't know he pours he has a bucket of cinnamon, let's say, and he pours it on the beach. You're gonna be able to separate that sand from the cinnamon. I mean,
Well, clearly on some level, there is a different level of consistency between the Lavona and the dough. The effectively it's really because the flour, as long as there is oil in it, will have some amount of dough. It will be effectively some aspect of dough that's there. And so that can have a thickness to it that may prevent the Lavona from going in. Now, there may be some Lavona that impacts into the flour and thereby becomes embedded. So
right,
you would need to
exactly.
make sure to move that flour as well in order to get sort of like deeper into the flour mixture, the dough mixture. But that should be possible. So that would be my understanding of how it would happen. Meaning, if you imagine yourself making a cookie dough, and then you put even some cinnamon on top of that cookie dough, and then you clear off the top of the cookie dough and the top layer of the dough, you can still access dough that doesn't have any cinnamon in it. And
So
so
is that
that
but so is that would that be permissible in this case? To the
oh,
removing some of the
that would
solid?
be what's required. You have to do that so
So
that
you have to
you're
remove some of the solid. Then it's not
you have
and
to just put it to the side. Remember, it stays in the container because we need it to be in the container. You can't have anything missing from the container either.
right,
If anything comes out of the container, that's a problem too.
right,
So,
exactly.
so you're absolutely right. Yeah, it stays in the container, it just gets moved to the side. It's sort of like turning a dough mixture on its side, right? If you have, again, the same applicable to bread dough, right? If you have bread dough and you turn it, you can easily turn it on its side, and now you're accessing the bread dough from a different direction, and that will allow you to get the dough without anything that had touched the side that
And then one can get enough solid for the kamitza, right?
yeah, because the kamitza is just a palmful, and we're
Right.
gonna, like I said, God willing, I think we're going to cover that tomorrow. So I will have an answer on what the Lavona's texture is, God willing, tomorrow. I'll look that up, see what I can find, and also we'll be, God willing, seeing how we do the kamitza. So bring your fists ready to practice. Looking forward to continuing our learning together. Have a great day.